Hey, everybody, welcome to Broadcast Team Alpha. How are you? That's my first question. How are you? I hope you're okay. I hope everybody is okay. Everybody's been through a lot of emotions, and I invite you tonight to put all of that behind you and to just welcome to just Nori's on. Sorry, guys. And to join join this energy consciousness and just let yourself be tonight. If you're new to this kind of information, our guests each come from a psychology background. So if the esoteric part of what we'll be discussing tonight is new, I just want to kind of give their ethos, back in the 3D world. They're just amazing women who have continued to expand in consciousness in multiple ways. So I'm not going to prolong my part tonight because Augie, please tell us about our guests. Can't wait to talk with them.
Yes, this is going to be so much fun. We have two wonderful ladies, and they are Barbara Lamb and Sheila Seppi. And let me first say that probably there is no need for an introduction, but I gotta say a couple of words anyway, because they have been in this
Are
field
you?
for
That's my first
quite
question.
a
How
long.
are you?
Oops.
I
Oh,
know, sorry.
there we go.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to say a couple of words about Barbara Lamb first. She actually is a legend in her own time, and she is one of the utmost researchers on the crop circles in the world. She's an author, a lecturer, and she's on conferences everywhere, being interviewed on radio and TV, on podcasts, and I think from what I have seen in her interviews, she's having a lot of fun with it. And yes, and
Yeah.
also a couple of words about Sheila. Sheila Seppi is a founder of Conscious Awakening Network, which is a wonderful place to go and find things that you're not supposed to know about. They got close to about 50 different shows on that platform, and you got to go check it out. I have spent some considerable time there and I enjoy myself. Go to consciousawakeningnetwork.org and have a look. She's also an author and a lecturer, and she is also something that is very unique. She is a spiritual walk in. And I think we should be touching on that because that is probably a little bit outside of what we normally talk about in our daily conversations with people. But this is going to get interesting. So, welcome to the show, ladies.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. We appreciate it.
Yes.
So good. So good. I feel like I'm breathing rarefied air with the two of you here tonight. It's seriously. So my big question initially is, how did you two powerhouses come together to write a book? How did that co-creation happen?
Oh,
Incredible.
interesting question. It sort of developed slowly over a period of a few years. Sheila came to me for a regression, hypnotic regression, which is my specialty for many years now.
Yes.
And I was very intrigued with her because she was a walk-in, and the regression definitely had something to do with that. And
Wow.
we got to know each other. And then, of course, Sheila went on to form the Galactic Alliance and the all the wonderful organizations that she does, Cosmic Conversations and Conscious Awakening Network. So I was very interested in following as much of that as I could. And we had a lot of interests in common, that's for sure. One of them being that she is a walk-in, which I had already had worked with a few people before her who were walking. So I understood about that and very, very much respected that there were these souls that were
Yes.
from somewhere else, sometimes a more spiritual, celestial realm, and sometimes from a more extraterrestrial realm. But in any event, they would make a soul exchange with a person who was living here and did not really want to be here any longer. So it was a mutual agreement between the two souls. And Sheila came in as the other soul left that body of that original person and has been here ever since, so that she can serve wonderfully, which indeed she does.
She
And
does.
it's extraordinary. So anyway, that's how we got to know each other. And then Sheila wanted to write the book about walk-in starseeds and hybrids, which I had been very familiar with starseeds and hybrids as well because of my work. So she invited me to collaborate with her to write this wonderful book, Cosmic Convergence. So here we are, and we have done it, and we're very happy with this book because it just contains so much enlightening information, not only about walk-ins, starseeds, and hybrids, but about so many aspects of reality, the larger reality that most people are really not aware of. And I think it's high time that we as a do become aware of the larger reality that we're all living in. So that's
Yes. Can,
my
Barbara, can you just, for people who are new to this concept, can you give us an example of the larger reality and just a small like intro to it for people who are just understanding things like this?
yes, I mean that's kind of a broad term, isn't
It
it?
is broad.
Reality, and it encompasses so much. I'm sure there's a lot more to the larger reality that I have not even discovered yet myself,
Yeah.
but it involves the fact that, well, what we know, those of us living here on Earth, is that there is what we call the third dimension of reality. And, from our point of view here, it's physical, it seems solid, even though we know from our physicists that it isn't. But anyway, there's the third dimension of reality. And then there are many other dimensions or frequencies of reality that most people, I think, on Earth only get a glimpse of, a hint about, just once in a great while. Like some people may uh, be visited by the spirit of a deceased loved one. And so that loved one is coming from a different dimension than we are in, a non-physical higher dimension. And then some people get inspiration and they get messages from somewhere of something unseen. And so that's coming from a higher dimension, a higher frequency, also beings. And we've come to know over time, some of us, that, wow, it goes way beyond that too. There are many, many different densities, different levels. And I know a woman I collaborated with in writing a crop circle book in the year 2000. She was channeling a being who was in the 11th dimension. And
Wow.
from point of view, that seemed very high. Indeed, she was that being in the 11th dimension was extremely knowledgeable and wise and a much wider range than I had ever been aware of before. And then it's been discovered that there are higher dimensions than that. So something that I've been discovering in the regression work with people is that many people have visits, encounters with beings who are not only extraterrestrial, that is, physical beings living physically on another planet or on a spaceship, but there are other dimensional beings who frequently come and visit us human beings. And in some cases, those other dimensional beings remove people for an hour or so, like the extraterrestrials do. And they do many, many kinds of things, including to help the people, to heal them of a tremendous array of physical infirmities. And those other dimensional beings give very wise counsel to these people who have the good fortune to have contact with them. So it expands from there.
Beautiful.
Sheila can talk more about what's beyond what I have said, but I think that what I have shared is something that maybe
It was good. Thank you. That was so good. So
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, how are you, Nori?
So good to see you. I'm good. I'm physical.
Yeah, that's important.
I almost went non-physical. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. So we're glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good.
Oh, it's a good one.
Sheila, tell us about this beautiful compilation, and I can't wait to read it.
Oh, I tell you, I'm really, really happy with this book because, in the first book that I wrote, The Walk-Ins, Cosmology of the Soul, I told my story and I had all of these other stories about different types of walk-ins, but I really wanted to put more in there. But with it being my first book, it's like, how much do you put in? Do you, keep mixing and matching? And so I'm very happy with that first book, and it's been wonderful for so many people who have discovered that they're a walk-in because they can use that as a guide. So in this book, I wanted to recap, but I also wanted to bring forward all of the things that I had learned since I had released the first book. And there were more types of walk-ins. Of course, I learned more and more about star seeds every day. I learned more about hybrids. And when I thought about, how to put all of this together, we had a ton of information in the back. It was going to be a glossary, and I was highly encouraged by the publisher to rethink that and to, look at a way to bring all of this galactic information forward in a digestible format that would help people understand not just what I'm bringing forward, but also how that fits into a seamless entry, if you will, for walk-in starseeds and hybrids. So that was quite a challenge, but I overcame, and I called Barbara, said, Barbara, what do you think? How does this look? How does this sound? And she, that's really good. Okay, let's, so she was really great about encouraging me. But, the whole book itself really emphasizes how, walk-in starseeds and hybrids are not just ordinary souls, but we've chosen to come to Earth to help to facilitate this collective spiritual awakening that's going on and to help with the alignment of humanity to the higher frequencies and higher timelines. And so I really wanted to start out talking about that. And so the first thing is with the dimensions, letting people know that from my perspective, the information that I have comes to me from my collective. And so they had a huge hand in writing this book and providing me information and reminding me about different things. And so we started out with dimensions, reminding people that these are different perceptions of reality. Now, yes, they're locations, but they're locations in the fact that we can all be having, and I'll talk about density. Well, let me just mention densities really are like the vibrational spaces in which everything is operating. So we're in third density, but many people have third dimensional thought processes all the way up past the 12th dimensional thought processes. That's why a lot of times, when we talk with people who may not be as spiritually awakened as other people that we talk to, but when we're talking to some people and maybe they haven't even spiritually awakened, we can see the potential that they have. We can see how, that they're really on that cusp of awakening because of the things they're saying and the questions that they're asking. But they cannot look at us because we're operating in a higher dimensional. They cannot look at us and see all of our potential because they've not yet raised their vibrational frequency to hold that knowledge. And so really the dimensions help us to hold knowledge, and the densities are the evolution of that knowledge, the evolution of consciousness. And so I really wanted to let people be aware of that because, right now, we are operating as a carbon-based life form. Everybody knows that. Science talks about it all the time. But a lot of times people will say, I've had live and dried blood cell analysis and I've got all this uric acid in my blood. And I'm kind of like, that's not uric acid, that's silica, because we are in the process of transforming from the carbon-based beings to carbon silica life forms. And from there, then we just continue to progress until we move all the way back into that liquid light and become part of source again. But while we're doing all of these things, we also have these planes of existences or our planes of reality, like the physical or the astral that Barbara was talking about. Because within the astral plane, we have 3 layers. We have that which surrounds us all the time. That's the lower astral. And that's where you'll find sometimes your guides, you'll find disincarnate spirits, you'll find a host of beings there. Then you move up to that second layer, and that's where like all the halls of learning and the Akashic records are located. Then you move up to that third layer, and that's paradise or heaven. And a lot of people think that's the end all do all, and that's great, but there's a lot past that. And so we can go to these places, we can go to paradise, and we can stay there for as long as our soul wants to. But then it's time, because the whole idea of ascending into a body is for the experience of growth. And so we want to constantly be growing and expanding. And as we move through these different planes of existence, we move all the way up to that monadic plane, which is that highest level, which also then connects us back in with that source energy consciousness. So I tried to put all these concepts in very readable chunks that people can pick the book up. They can read, let's say, about dimensions, and then they can put it down. Then they can go read about densities and put it down. Or they can go read about timelines, which are so important because we have so many timelines now that are beginning to converge, and that people are really finding that, the Mandela effect, number one, but many people are also beginning to pull back some higher aspects or even some equally vibratory aspects of them that may be in other parallel realities. And these realities through the timelines are starting to collapse. And so, the book talks about that. It talks about our holographic field. It talks about how, you can navigate these different fields in order to come into the human form. And so we start out with the magnitude, the massiveness of the universe, and we hone it down then to that individual perspective of the soul. And then we also have a section about the walk-ins, a section about star seeds and hybrids, including what to look for, what might be some of the signs that someone might be having one of these experiences.
And there's a question in the chat room. that said, if a walk-in is seamless, how would you know right away that it happened?
Well,
I
it's
would.
not always seamless. Let me just, it's definitely not a seamless process. For
No.
me, I was a very, very sick person and had been diagnosed with a plethora of life-threatening diseases. But when the walk-in came in, I was instantaneously healed. But that was my path to have that happen. We can't just ask for a walk-in to occur. So for me, I was what's called a soul exchange walk-in, where one soul leaves and another soul comes in. But there's other types of walk-ins, but the things that we all have in common is, number one, when you have, let's just use what I am for right now, the soul exchange. When you have a soul exchange walk-in come in, the old soul leaves. They're complete with this life. They're ready to move on and they move into higher planes, okay? When you come into a body like I did, you're inheriting everything with that body. All of the thought processes, all of the cellular memories, all of the ancestral healing that has to be done, everything that's, all the cellular memories, everything. You have all of that in the body. And you walk into a life circumstance. So in my case, I walked into the body of a 38-year-old woman with 3 children and a husband. But within 3 months, I had left that marriage because there was no vibrational resonance there. The children, however, I came in with an immediate love. And for the first time, they had a mom that could play with them, that could run, could do things. We could hike, we could, get down in the floor and wrestle, whatever it was. Whereas before, I was a very sick person. So the transition for the children was beautiful. For me, however, during all of this process, before, during, and after, the entire chakra system had to be changed out because I couldn't operate from that. The meridians had to change, the ley lines of the body, all of the spiritual bodies had to be upgraded. So there's a huge process that takes place. I had no idea that I was a walk-in. I'd never even heard of the concept. And if you had told me about it, I would have laughed you out of the room,
Yes.
because at that time I had no idea. And so sometimes people do not know that they're a walk-in. Other times they, just like what with me, I knew something had happened because I started having past life memories that I didn't believe in. I started having remembrances of universal truths, just like, some of the things we talked about. I had never studied, nor was I even interested in that. And also my personality changed. Everything about me changed. Okay. And so I wasn't looking for that and I didn't recognize it. I just thought something different had happened, but I didn't know what. And it wasn't until, at least 6 months later when I found my first spiritual teacher that I understood that I was a walk-in, but then it still took years for everything to integrate because, as I mentioned, I wasn't like a single soul that came in from a planetary location or dimensional aspect. I'm part of a collective and I'm still connected to them. So the old soul of this body was Arcturian and had laid a framework in the field. So when I initially came in, there were just drops of the Arcturian energy until the body healed. And that has taken, gosh, probably in the last 4 to 5 years, I have anchored in the fullness of the Andromedan energy. And that could be energy that switches out again. But a lot of times people don't know.
Wow.
And it usually causes chaos because, most walk-ins that I know end up getting a divorce because
Yeah.
they just, they're not the same person. They don't have the
No.
same dislikes.
Yeah, how could that even work? I totally get that. I have a friend who is also a nurse. I'll tell a really quick story. And she worked in the ER. And Linda, if you're here, um, and a youngish woman came in, coded, And they ran the code and they went a little longer because she was younger and they couldn't get her back. So she flatlined. The doctor went and called the husband, and the husband said, okay. And all the medical people were like, what is going on? And he said to the nurse, she's done this before. 20 minutes later, they didn't take her off the monitor. Her heart started beating again. And the nurse, my friend, the nurse, believes that that was a walk-in. What do you think?
It could have been, but it also, a lot of times what will happen, because walk-ins, there are many ways that walk-ins can arrive. And we have a whole section in our book that people can read about that. But one of the ways is, of course, through illness or hospitalization, comas, those kinds of things. However, sometimes that can also serve as a catalyst to wake up a sleeping soul. And that soul wakes up and remembers who it is, remembers it came from another planet. So that was what you would be, you would call a starseed. But it could be a walk-in. You just, you'd have to talk to them, and there's some signs and, different things. But, I think the thing that's also confusing, if everyone was a soul exchange, that would be one thing. But there's many types of walk-ins, but I call those soul experiencers. So sometimes people will have a soul infusion, and this could have also happened with your friend, where aspects of that soul leaves, and the originating soul, the natal soul to the body, is augmented with different aspects of its higher self, or some of the oversoul aspects. But so that's not even a complete exchange, it's just an augmentation. But then you also have like soul mergers, and they resemble a soul infusion, but they're different because the natal soul remains and this other soul comes in, and the two of them merge together. But it's always part of their own oversoul or their Shantias Khan, or a multidimensional aspect of themselves. And then of course you've got like we call them soul jumpers or poppers or pop-ins, and they sound kind of fun, but these are some of the most intense experiences that people have, because the soul pops in, it imprints, it leaves a ton of information, and it leaves. And the original soul has been there the entire time, like, what's going on? Who's in the driver's seat? And that can be super intense. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different types of walk-ins that I've identified in the book, that if someone thinks that they might be a walk-in, please, 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 pick up a copy, look at it, and maybe you're going to say, oh, that is me.
Excellent. I see now that we are down to the bottom of the hour here. And for those of you that joined us late, we are talking with Barbara Lamb and Sheila Seppi. Barbara is a world authority when it comes to crop circle and spiritual issues, and we are having a deep discussion here. Sheila is just now explaining what it is like to be a spiritual walk-in. So if you're wondering about that, you got to run the tape back and listen to it, because this gets deep. So I just had a quick question. We were talking about spirits and souls and different dimensional existences. How far up the spiritual ladder do you think this goes? I hear some people say there's 12 different dimensions, and then there are other opinions. Any one of you, what do you think? How far do we get up to where we can join the collective, where everything is light and bliss?
Well, when you're talking about joining a collective, that's like a seventh density, because you've gone through the first sixth, you've actually completed everything, you no longer have a physical form. And that's kind of where I was, because we were in pure consciousness, but there's more past that. And when you ask about how many dimensions, I don't know if we'll ever fully really know, because what we're talking about are the dimensions that govern this universe. And we are only one of many, many universes that are out there. And so what my collective has told me, that everyone is already everything that they're seeking to become. They are already attached to all the various dimensions and densities, all the timeline, everything that they could possibly want. They already are that. However, when we incarnate, we come in with very limited memory and very limited span. And that really is for our protection, because, I have many, many people that say, I want to remember everything. And I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you
Because
don't.
no, you don't. I
You
mean,
know.
this life, just think about it. If you remembered everything 100% from this life, not to mention your entire existence since you left source. And for me, that's what all these journeys are about. Whether you're an extraterrestrial, whether you're a terrestrial form, whatever it is, it's all source energy and how source is showing up. So our souls, the next time, may choose to be a Palladian. So we're not always the same thing, because we're eternal beings. And how boring would that get?
That
if it was the
be,
same thing every day.
yeah, the
Every
groundhog
life.
myth.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So Sheila, if we are connected to everything, and if we have everything, but we have limited view, limited memory, how do we open up and how do we reconnect?
Well,
Barbara,
okay, yeah, I'll answer real quick and then I'll let Barbara answers. But my collective has always told me to go within, to drop into the silence and allow. Because when we start to look externally, a lot of times we don't receive the answers. Okay. And you can go internal. Let's say someone thinks that they're a star seed. They could get the book, they can read about star seeds, they go quiet, they go into meditation, and they ask their own soul, am I a star seed? And then listen.
That's the best advice I've heard in a long time. I love that.
The deeper
Barbara,
answer. Yeah.
how do we
Go ahead.
connect?
Yeah,
I think
the deeper answers are always within. So what do you
Yeah,
think, Barbara?
I didn't hear Barbara. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Barbara,
yeah, I was going to sing the praises for being quiet and going within, meditating. And there are many different forms of meditation, and that's perfectly fine. Different people prefer different methods of doing that. But another wonderful way of finding out that I have been discovering is hypnotic regression. Like people come to me, particularly these more recent years, wondering about why they're really here. That
yeah.
seems to be a presenting question. Why am I here in this life? What is this really about? And by that time, they might be in their 40s or 50s or 60s, and they've had a lot of life and probably have had a marriage and children and work and so forth. And then they come to a point where you think, I wonder if there's sort of something that I'm supposed to be doing. Now, maybe not everybody has that query going on inside of them, but many of the people who come to me do. So we do a regression to go back into a deeper, or we might call it a higher state of awareness in deep relaxation. And and they can ask their own soul, they can ask their guides, they can ask their subconscious mind even, and it comes out what they are really, really here to be doing. And sometimes in those regressions, they find out where they have most recently come from, which might be from a human from many, many lifetimes, or it might be from more of a celestial, spiritual being who's not been here on Earth before or for a long time, or they might have more recently been one of the many extraterrestrial types of beings. But anyway, the point is not just to find out that interesting lineage, although that always is interesting, uh, but to realize why they are here in this particular lifetime. And there's also such a thing, and I had this done for me back in 1983, before I knew about any of this. Um, I had a regression taking me back to my soul existence when I was just deciding to come into this lifetime on
Wow.
Earth as a physical human being. And that was a very, very enlightening experience, which I've helped many other people to do since then. And then when the regression therapist said, now be aware of the main purpose that you're coming into life. And that's when the most important part of the information is, in my opinion, that you realize, oh yes, there is a specific mission. And then they can assess whether or not they're already doing that mission. In some cases, they are. They're already giving service in a particular way that's very much in line with what their soul had decided to do. In some cases, oh, they realize, wow, I haven't been doing that. I really better change my ways and start really giving that service. And in some cases, it means getting extra training. Like some people, their soul has decided that they're here to help people with physical healing, just as one example. And that person might have already been aware that he or she had healing energy coming out from his or her hands, but didn't really know how to focus it and use it effectively. So they might then go for a year or two of training in a particular modality of physical healing. But there could be many examples of what people have come from. So in our book, Cosmic Convergence, we give examples of about 5 or 6 different people who are star seeds. And I tell about what their lives were like and how they began to get hints and bits and pieces of that maybe they're not just the regular person. Maybe maybe they've been wondering why they're quite different than all the other people they know, even people in their families. And we put these pieces together in the regression, and they realize, oh, I'm what's called a star seed. Well, now I'm just going to go much more fully into whatever that mission is. The hybrids are also here. We have a wonderful section in our book about the hybrids, and they are definitely here to help humanity, to help individuals whom they come in contact with, and also just humanity as a whole. So we have examples from case studies, people I've actually worked with who discovered, usually not until they were young adults, they discovered that they were hybrids. That is, they have genetics from one or more, usually more, species of extraterrestrial beings. But 3 of these categories, these groups of people, walk-ins, starseeds, and hybrids, who we mention in this book, they're all here definitely for good. They're here very benevolent service to their fellow men and sometimes to the earth and to animal life. Some of them are very, very tuned in with animal communication and reverence and great appreciation for all animal life, reptilian life, insect life, plant life, everything. So it's wonderful when they do discover that that's what they are, and that's why they're so different than other people they know. I would like to add quickly too that all of these people we're talking about, the walk-ins, these star seeds, the hybrids, they all look perfectly like human beings.
Right.
Not walk down the sidewalk and say, "Oh my God, that must be a walk-in," or that must be a starseed. Or, you know, and they're except for the walk-ins, these star seeds and the hybrids are born here, born of regular human parents, born the way that we all get born. And then, of course, in the case of the walk-ins, they inhabit a regular human body of a soul that's here in that human body. And so they look like regular people as well. And I think that's really perfect because that means that they're, you know, mingling in with other people in a normal way or a normal appearance, certainly. But they just have a lot more to them and a lot that they give to other people. So
It's
I think it's great for people to learn about this, and really the way to do it, as far as I can see.
So,
well, let me just add one thing real quick. You know, the only difference with walk-ins or anybody's, you know, it's when our souls arrive. Because I think the important thing for everybody, the reason that we're all here is to have this human experience, whatever our mission is. And so it's really exciting that there's so many people that are here that are walk-in starseeds and hybrids, you know, because everybody wanted to be here. Because, you know, I always say it's going to be the greatest show in the galaxy with everything happening.
Will you excuse me for a minute? Just when Barbara said people are tuned into animals, Pixie started whining, and my heart and attention is pulled there. So, Augie, will you please keep this going? I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Okay, all right. Now, I want to hear a little bit about crop circles also, but I got one quick question on spirituality first. When we live our life here, at one point, the rumor on the street is that we are going to drop the body and go on home. It's a very persistent rumor, so we probably end up doing that. But we go home to get re-educated and we reevaluate what we did, and then we decide if we want to go back and do it over again or get other jobs on the other side. Now, that's the understanding, the common one, but what about the ones that don't make it home? We call them ghosts. They have been around, I know for a fact, because I spent one night in a cathedral in Europe. The cathedral was built in a year about 1150, and there were ghosts in there. We could hear them talking. They were playing on some type of music. And at one point, we heard chains being dragged along the floor. These are spirits that has been here for hundreds of years. What happened to them? Why didn't they go home too? Any ideas?
I can honestly say, because I remember where I was and how it felt and everything when the soul comes in. And I also remember what it's like when the soul leaves and those feelings as well. And I have to say, wherever our consciousness level is where we will end up. Okay. We create our realities, whether it's on this side or the other. And if these individuals were, let's say, earthbound, they felt like they had things to do, or it was like they passed on their land and they loved their land more than anything. They loved that land. 9 times out of 10, there's going to be an aspect. But remember, it's only an aspect, a very faint echo of what that is, because that's still a part of the soul. We are so multidimensional. And that's another reason that I wanted to write the book, is so people could really, start to understand the magnitude of our multidimensional nature, because that really opens the doors for a much greater understanding of our true potential. So if we pass and we're on the other side, once we remember who we are, where we are, and what all of this is about, we will transition over to the other side and pass that, because that's the lower astral. That's the earthbound astral. Okay. That's the astral that's around us.
Yep.
If we could see what's actually around us, we would probably all we'd probably all freak out just a little bit, because of the amount of life forms that there are around us, whether they're, disembodied, or whether they're galactic or whatever. A lot of people are not used to seeing that. But for earthbound souls, that's the lower part of the astral. So as the vibrational frequency of this planet rises, as the vibrational frequency that's around all of these beings begins to rise, so will their vibrational frequency. Everyone has that opportunity. No one is left behind.
Yeah, I know back in Norway 1,000 years ago, they were pretty earthbound people. They were warriors, and they were their land and their family was all they knew.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it, that the ones who hang around the earth plane, shall we say, or tend to be ones who they might be addicted to something, or to some sort of substance, or they might be habituated into a certain aspect of physical life, and their focus for their lives may have been primarily this physical world, and certainly various things in the physical world. The consciousness, in other words, has not expanded into some of these other realms, so that when the spirit leaves the body, it just stays with what it knows in some cases. However, there is such a thing as spirit releasement, and there are practitioners of this. I had some training in this myself years ago, and that when a spirit is not only hanging around the earth plane, but is actually inhabiting somebody else's body, somebody who's living here, and that happens quite frequently. In certain kinds of sessions, the spirit that's hanging around and in living in a body can be talked to, reasoned with, educated actually, and encouraged to leave that person and go into the realm where it should really be. So that's good, and that can be true even of ghosts hanging around. That there are some people, I have met some of them, who can go into a place and not only detect that there's a spirit, a ghost living there, but talk to, reason with, convince that spirit that it's a much, much better situation if they will go on into the light, and they can actually release them in that way. It's not like a harsh thing, like an exorcism that we've all heard about. It can be done more with just talking and reasoning and encouraging and educating that spirit about a much better realm that's just waiting for them, waiting to greet them and welcome them there. A realm they just have not even known about.
That's a beautiful service right there, the
Yeah.
people that do that. Oh,
It is.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I kind of want to know a little bit about crop circles also. And you have studied that, Barbara, for a long time. And
Yeah.
there's about 475 questions that come up when we mention that subject. So let's just do one of them.
Okay.
Who is doing it?
Who is doing this? Well,
Yeah.
I have to give a disappointing answer in the sense that we don't really know for sure. But in my opinion, out of 25 years of personally visiting many crop circles in England and introducing other people by taking them into the crop circles, um, it certainly, in my opinion, is coming from somewhere else, not
Yeah.
from people, although there are some young men in England who go out and make crop circles in the middle of the night, and I've met them. I've had long talks with them. I've seen the drawings that they are going to make a crop circle in that pattern, and then the next day I go out and that pattern is in the field. But that's a relatively small proportion of crop
Yeah.
circles. So the real ones, the ones we call genuine ones, are certainly seeming to come from somewhere else. I don't know specifically if it's an extraterrestrial realm or if it's a more celestial, spiritual realm. But whoever or whatever uh, they are, they do come into our physical reality and do this work in the physical fields of growing crops. And
Yeah.
they do a beautiful job.
They
And
do.
they leave energies. Each
Mhm.
crop circle that is a genuine one has its own particular energy, which you can feel. And you
Yeah.
can measure it with pendulums and dowsing rods and electrostatic voltmeters and magnetometers and microwave detectors. So, I mean, even the scientists know, oh, yeah, okay, there really are changes here and changes in the soil right under a crop circle as well. So, whatever or whoever they are who are making the crop circles, I think they are doing a real benevolent service,
Yeah.
adding special energies to the earth. They're adding special energies to all the people who go into them. It has been said by the 11th dimensional being that the energies of the crop circles even enhance the DNA of our bodies.
Yes.
In fact, that source says that even if you cannot get to where a crop circle is, but if you look at a picture, a photograph of a crop circle, even that makes some change for the better in your own DNA.
Yeah.
So I think it's a completely benevolent, beneficent achievement. And it's wonderful. They are gifts to us, I consider. It's a wondrous phenomenon.
Mhm.
The crop circles are like frequency medicine. Sorry. Yeah, right?
They're like medicine.
Like frequency medicine. Sorry.
Oh, that's a nice way to say it. Yes. And in fact, many people have been physically healed of all kinds of disabilities by just being in a crop circle for an hour or two. It was sort of discovered, oh, back in the very early 1990s by mistake by an English woman who went in with a very sore shoulder. And she had driven an hour or so to get there, went in with a friend to a crop circle. And they sat there and they had a little picnic lunch while sitting in the crop circle. They were there a couple of hours. And then when they drove home again, she suddenly realized, oh, my shoulder isn't hurting anymore. and it never did hurt again. And she,
Wow.
oh, I must have been healed by the energy of that crop circle. So she began to do a study. Her name is Lucy Pringle, a wonderful English woman, and did a study for many years of other people who had been healed in a
Mm.
crop circle. Yeah, so there really is energy, and it's
That's
living, vital. It
that's on
really,
my bucket list now, Barbara, to go to a crop circle.
good. I hope you will. I
Yeah.
hope you will. Really do.
Yeah,
So
That's magic.
it's a
and
lovely experience.
the design are so intricate, and there's not it's not by random. There's designs to it that has a meaning behind it, almost like a portion of a language that is given to us.
Yes, and
Yeah,
the patterns, um, some of them are recognizable symbols from our point of view of being humans, and some of them are spiritual symbols that we're aware of in some cultures more than others. Some are more biological or scientific. There have been some that have been looking like a molecule, a chemical molecule.
yeah,
And those always seem to refer to something that is very helpful to human beings and helpful to healing our
Mm.
bodies. And sometimes they give warnings, like one crop circle several years ago um, showed the symbol that we have for nuclear waste. You know, when there's an area, you need to be careful because of the nuclear properties
yeah,
there. And another one a few years ago just sort of spelled out in a different code, spelled out no more war.
yeah,
Mm.
And then there was one in 2002 where it looked like the typical gray alien head with the big eyes. And that head was holding a disc, like a CD disc or DVD
yeah,
disc, and it was full of coded, encoded information about warning us to beware of false promises.
Mm.
We hate deceit,
Yes.
but still there is hope out there. And then
Mm.
do it closing, which I think means just the end of that message.
yeah,
That was all in ASCII code, which has been decoded, interpreted by a number of people. And then there was I think one of the most astonishing ones was that there was a long rectangular glyph that we humans sent out in 1974 from the Arecibo radio telescope, the largest radio telescope in the world, sent out to the M13 star cluster. We never knew if anything would ever come back in any way from that. But lo and behold, in 2001, in a crop circle field, was this long rectangular shape, just like the glyph that we sent out, with
Wow.
all features that we had put into ours, like our chemical components, mineral components, our DNA, our population, what we look like we send out a figure of a small head and then a larger body, 2 arms, 2 legs.
yeah.
And then our relation to our sun, population, our transmission method, our equipment, the radio telescope. And then in 2001, there was this glyph in the field. We can't call it a crop circle because it wasn't circular, but it was the same sort of thing, a pattern laid down perfectly in the field. And it seemed they addressed every aspect that we had addressed in our glyph, but with minor changes. In other words, seems like they, whoever they are out there in space, were giving us information about them, their DNA. They have an extra strand of DNA, and
Yeah.
showed a larger head and a very short body. And they showed that they had 2 suns, whereas we have 1. And they had a different population, which was even larger than ours.
Wow.
Mhm.
Population. And then their transmission system was different, very different than ours. It kind of flared out in all directions.
Yeah,
So,
I see that.
when things like this happen, a whole message being set out and then seemingly
Yeah.
responded to in such detail, it really, I think, gives credence to the fact that something very intelligent is
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
phenomenon.
I know. And gosh, I see we are coming down to the end of the show here. And man, oh man, for those of you out there listening, all you had for right now is the tip of the iceberg. Go get your hands on that book, Cosmic Convergence, and you'll get the rest of the story. Would you say just a little more about what's in the book for us?
Oh, yeah. The whole premise is that we're multidimensional beings, because if we can understand that, we have access to more potential. And we talk about the different types of potential. We talk about dimensions and densities and timelines and holographic universe and chakras and ley lines of the body and walk-ins and star seeds and hybrids. So if you have an interest in that, this is the book for you. So I am very happy with that. We also have 3 entire sections with hypnotherapy sessions from Barbara. And so Barbara is giving these real life count experiences of people under hypnosis that have experienced the walk-in starseed or hybrid situations or scenarios, or however we want to call it, an event.
Mhm.
Right.
I
And amazing to me how appreciative people are when they find out more about themselves like that. I just get so many thank yous afterwards, letters, emails, phone calls afterwards. It's, oh, thank you so much for helping me to realize who I really am.
Yeah. Are you booked out until next year, Barbara? You must be busy.
I'm busy, but there
Yeah.
are more spaces here and there.
Oh,
Yes.
good, good. Barbara, how could somebody get an appointment with you? How could somebody find you?
Well, I think the best way is to email me, and the email address is barbara.lamb, Lamb, .therapist at gmail.com. Or they can go to my website, and there's a section on the website for leaving a message that comes through to my email. That might be easier to remember. It's Barbara Lamb Regression.com.
That's great.
BarbaraLambRegression.com. Yeah, so I do have spaces for seeing people, and I'm very, very happy to continue that work.
Wonderful. I can imagine. Sheila, how can people reach you? I mean, you do so much. You've got groups, you've got shows, you're helping people, healing people.
Yeah.
Well, it's very simple. Just go to SheilaSeppi.com. And that is the easiest way. And you can, if you're interested in a session, if you're looking for healing, that type of thing, if you're a content provider and you have a story to share, go to the consciousawakeningnetwork.org. You may have different programs that you would want to share with everyone. So whatever you're looking for, whether it's healing, hands-on healing, multidimensional healing, or if you want to become part of the Conscious Awakening Network, all that information is found on the SheilaSeppi.com.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and Nori and my show, Broadcast Team Alpha, is right on your platform.
Yeah.
So we are there also. You'll find us there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Barbara and Sheila. Thank you so much for being here with us. I mean, it was so
Wonderful.
yummy and enriching and magical and
Thanks.
Yeah.
feels really
we-
good. Thank you.
Well,
This
thank
was a
you.
Always good
wonderful
to be
show.
with you guys. Thanks so
Thank-
much.
Thank you very much.
Everybody in
And-
the chat room, it's good to see you, and we will be back. Well, go ahead, Augie. You tell them when we'll be back.
We'll be back next week again, same time, same station. So be right there. And we also do a show on Sunday night at 5 o'clock Pacific. 5 o'clock. Now, summer savings time, get me confused. It's mountain time now. Okay. But
8
7
o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, 8
Oh,
o'clock
7?
is. There you go. Oh.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Mac